Hello everyone, welcome to What If Goku Was in My Hero Academia and Wanted to Become Number 1 Hero Part 1. Before we start, please go support Reginald Loves and I'm for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Sun Wakang. Heikin was the only word uttered before every robot in the vicinity exploded. The onlookers looked shocked before many of them ran forward to destroy any other robots that had somehow managed to survive the initial onslaught. These heroes were highly efficient, some more than others. Yet none was more efficient than the hero coated in a red light and leaving the salvage of his robot victims behind him. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes. Only 5 left until the practical exam is over. I've got to speed up. Wait, what was that energy drop? The young man with black hair spiked up at different angles asked himself. He wore a tracksuit which was beginning to rip under the pressure of the power he was emitting. Turning to face the direction the disturbance was coming from, the hero had a look of concentration on his face before rushing forward in a burst of speed. Closing in, he saw a giant arm lift into the air before preparing to punch down at its target. Damn it. I've got to speed up. Here goes. Kaiken ×2 yelled the individual whose energy, speed and power increased exponentially with him arriving at the imminent danger within seconds. Skidding to a halt in the city square, the hero looked up at the gigantic robot in front of him before seeing what it was targeting. Beneath a pile of rocks lay a young girl with short violet hair and what appeared to be headphone jacks coming from the bottom of her ears. Her leg appeared pinned under the debris and she was struggling to get free. The young man noticed that everyone else was running away and that not one of them appeared to consider helping her. On instinct, the hero rushed forward before crouching and leaping straight into the air. Suddenly a yellow ball of energy appeared in his right hand and he aimed it behind him. Before any of those who fled had time to blink, a beam of energy erupted from the hero's right hand and he blasted himself forward, crashing headfirst into the robot which toppled over backwards. As he landed to the ground, the hero was quick to remove the boulder that pinned the girl's leg from its resting position. He helped her to her feet before a voice rang out through the city. "Alright, time's up, well done for your work today kids, your results will be sent to you soon, good luck," screamed the extremely joyous person on the other side of the microphone. All people in the city turned to the giant metal door that was slowly opening up to reveal a completely different area. Everyone within the city walked towards the gap in the wall, with each of them looking strangely different. Some looked human, others looked like animals. Yet in this world this is normal for all of society. This is a superhuman society after all, where 80% of the planet's population has some form of uncanny superpower. These powers are called quirks, and in this society, there are heroes, and each of them has to pass an entrance exam to be trained to be a hero, such as the one that just finished. The young man deactivated his quirk and gasped in pain as the muscles throughout his entire body strained. The girl he saved from before looked up at him from where she was standing and moved her hair out of her face before nervously holding her hand out for him to shake. "So, thanks for saving me. You're pretty strong, dude." "I'm Kyokijiro. What's your name?" she asked. The spiky-haired boy childishly smiled and took her hand with a firm grip before quickly shaking it without stopping. "Hi, my name's Son Goku, but please just call me Goku. It's a pleasure to meet you, Jiro," he cheerily exclaimed while Jiro was struggling to keep up with how fast he was shaking her hand. Eventually Goku let her hand go before taking a step back and pushing his hair back, which almost immediately returned to its original spikiness. Jiro's mouth opened in pure confusion before closing it and giving a small smile. The pair turned around and made for the door. As they left the exam area, the pair gave each other their regards and the best of luck with their results. Jiro walked towards a car which she entered and she waved to Goku as the car drove off. Goku raised his right hand and waved. He then proceeded to turn on his heel 90 degrees to the right and started to jog away from the examination area. After about 40 minutes he arrived at a small house on the outskirts of the city. Pulling a key out of his pocket, he put the key into the keyhole and unlocked the door before opening the door and entering his house. The house was eerily quiet with not a single peep of noise being made. Closing the door, Goku removed his tracksuit jacket and hung it on the door leading to the living room. Entering his kitchen, Goku quickly got out some ingredients and whipped himself up a buffet of ramen, dumplings, sushi and steak. Sitting down with his chopsticks, he made quick work of his meal with the dishes piling up higher and higher. Once he had finished, Goku cleaned up and made his way to his bed which, in his one-floor house, was just through a doorway in the living room. As he undressed and got into something more comfortable, Goku passed by a mural for 3 individuals. There were 2 framed photos above it. In one photo there were 2 individuals, 1 male and 1 female. The man in the photo was the spitting image of Goku, albeit slightly older and with an X-shaped scar on his left cheek. He had a small smirk on his face. The woman in the photo had shaggy black hair down to her shoulders with bangs and a gentle-looking face. She had a smile on her face and was holding onto the man's right arm. The pair looked happy. The other photo showed an elderly man with a white mustache and a martial arts uniform with a green hat on his head. Goku looked at the mural and a feeling of sadness fell over him. He turned and made for his bed before jumping and lying down on the bed, facing the ceiling. Slowly his weary eyes began to close and he drifted off to sleep. Flames arose all around Goku. Screams echoed everywhere throughout the city of Musatafu. Goku heard a familiar scream and turned to his right to see the woman from the photo, his mother, be impaled on a protruding object, while he saw his father be vaporized by an orb of plasma. Suddenly someone cried out his name and he turned to face the old man from the other photo. He was trapped in a house similar to Goku's, and before Goku could react the house collapsed and the old man perished in the debris and flames. Goku looked on in terror before spotting a figure raise his hand towards him with a strange glow radiating from it. As the figure neared, Goku began to scream in terror. Goku awoke with a start and was soaked in sweat. Sitting up, he heard the door go and quickly went to open the door. Instead of someone standing there, all Goku could see was a letter on the ground. Looking out the door both ways, Goku shrugged and bent down to pick the letter up before walking back inside and closing the door. He placed the letter down on the table in the living room and sat down to look at it. His eyes widened as he noticed the insignia of UA High School. Immediately opening the envelope, he placed a holodisc on the table and sat back in his chair as the disc activated. All of a sudden, the video began with a tall, muscular man with blonde hair and a suit appearing in front of Goku. No way. That's All Might. There's no possible way the #1 strongest hero of all time is going to be teaching at UA. Oh my god, I can't wait to fight him, he must be crazy strong, haha, this is gonna be great. Goku loudly cheered before calming down and once again sitting back in his chair. Almost instantly the video began. Hello young Goku, I am here to give you your results for the UA entrance exam. Ahem. As you are fully aware, young man, the entrance exam was split into a written and practical exam. In regards to your written exam, you passed, but you have a long way to go if you wish to improve your academic score. Now on the other hand, your practical exam is clearly where you're shown. The power and technique you showed while using your quirk was outstanding, and you are definitely an incredibly powerful person. This means you have instantly been accepted into UA. You earned the second highest villain score behind only one student who scored 5 points more than you. However, you also risked your life for a fellow examinee. The young Kyoka Jiro, I believe. You should be extremely proud of yourself. Which is why we took this into consideration during the exam. You see, heroes risk their lives every day to defeat villains, but they also save people. In showcasing selflessness and bravery in the face of an unyielding adversary, you have proven yourself to have the heroic qualities that we look for here at UA. You scored 50 of what we call rescue points. With that finally out of the way, there is only one thing left to do, All Might explained to Goku, who was aware that this wasn't a live video, but rather a recording. Goku smiled and paused the video before quickly ran to the mural of his parents and his grandfather. I've done it, Mum, Dad. You too, Grandpa Gohan. I'm going to be the hero that makes you proud, he thought to himself before quickly making his way back to his seat playing the video. All Might looked towards the camera with an image of UA appearing in the background and with his signature smile, held his right arm out facing Goku with his right hand open. Son Goku. Welcome to your Hero Academia. My hero, this was it. The day he had been waiting for. The day he started UA High School to train to become a hero. Goku awoke early and went about his day as usual. A 20-minute jog, a hefty breakfast, cleaning up, changing, brushing teeth, and finally walking out the front door for school. Today was different though, as he was instead walking out the house with his brand new UA school uniform. Goku tugged at the collar of his shirt with unease. He had never really liked school uniform and much preferred training attire, but with his future as a hero on the line, he had decided to suck it up and not complain. Besides, he wanted to impress his teachers and peers. Arriving at UA was the easy part for Goku. The hard part was finding his homeroom, which was part of the hero course designation Class 1A. After much searching and getting lost, one of the reasons he intended to arrive earlier than other students, he eventually spotted a familiar figure walk down one of the hallways and stand at a door. Using his quirk to sense their energy, a goofy smile appeared on his face as he ran down the hall towards them. Hero, it's me Goku man, am I glad to see you made it into UA as well, he shouted with clear joy in his voice. Jiro looked to her left and was greeted by a pair of arms wrapping around her in embrace and lifting her into the air before being spun around once and plopped back down to the ground. Jiro looked bewildered and a little flustered before pushing her violet hair back off her face and smiling at her enthusiastic assailant. Hey Goku. Nice to see you here too. No surprise though after what I saw at the exam, she said while silently laughing at how naive and innocent Goku appeared. Goku didn't appear to notice and continued smiling. Yeah, I know, right, it's crazy. All that work and I got in though I can't seem to find my homeroom, heh, he chuckled awkwardly and Jiro smirked before turning back to the door and directing Goku's attention to what it read. When Goku saw it, his eyes went wide with shock, embarrassment and excitement as right in front of him in bright red was the insignia 1A. He turned back to Jiro, who nodded and proceeded to open the door. What they saw was a handful of people, each with their own appearance and personalities established just by Goku looking at them. He always saw himself as a good judge of character, and he could tell that he would get along with everyone in his class. His only concern was a blonde-haired boy with his feet on his desk. His eyes were red, and he had a villainous aura surrounding him. This would have been easy to ignore had he decided to not have an arrogant and evil smirk on his face, as he was being reprimanded by a tall, blue-haired boy with glasses. The tall boy was shaking his hand up and down incredibly fast, and Goku mentally admitted that not even he had a chance of telling how fast it was being done. Goku saw that Jiro had already claimed a desk as her own, so he decided to as well. He noticed a seat at the front that hadn't been taken and decided he would perch there. As he placed his bag on the ground and sat down in his chair, he sensed two pure-hearted energies at the door and looked over to see a boy with green curly hair and freckles, blushing and talking to a girl of similar height with shoulder-length bobbed and slightly curled auburn-colored hair. The girl herself had a perpetual blush on her cheeks. Before Goku even had time to introduce himself, a voice spoke up from behind the two latecomers. "If you're going to just stand there then you may as well leave," came the solemn voice. Both the green-haired boy and cheery girl turned around and looked down before screaming out in shock. Goku wanted to move to see what it was, but after the previous comment, decided it was best if he just waited. The rest of the conversation was blocked out by Goku as he started to daydream about being a hero. "Alright class, listen up. My name is Shota Izawa, but you'll just call me Mr. Izawa. I'm your homeroom teacher and I won't take any annoyances lightly. With that said, get your gym clothes on and meet me outside in 5 minutes," the voice from before, now standing at the front of the class, bluntly stated. Goku snapped out of his daydreaming at the word gym, and as Izawa finished speaking Goku jumped out of his chair and bolted for the changing room. The rest of his class looked shocked and confused but quickly followed after him. By the time they had arrived at the changing rooms, Goku was already leaving clad in his brand new UA gym tracksuit. "Ah. That's way better. Time for some training, this is gonna be fun," woohoo, Goku triumphantly yelled, causing all classmates save for the blonde-haired boy and a boy with both white and red hair to look dumbfounded. Eventually everyone in one arrived outside and were greeted by Goku and Izawa who were waiting for them. Izawa seemed slightly disturbed by Goku's enthusiastic attitude, but what did he really care? The sooner this was over the sooner he could go back to sleep. "Alright then. Apart from that one, you took too long. Imagine if someone was in danger. You would have been too late to help. Regardless, it's time you knew why you are out here. I don't care about the introductory talk. I'm holding a number of exercises. You can use your quirks in them. The goal is to get the best result in each of them. There will be a leaderboard at the end and we will see where you are placed so you can know your limits and how much you have to improve," he stated with a lack of enthusiasm. "Did I forget to mention? Whoever scores last will be instantly expelled. Don't be that person," he evilly chuckled. The majority of the class went into panic mode with each of them arguing how that was unfair. The response was that life was unfair. "PSST. Goku. Why aren't you nervous about all this?" Jiro whispered. Goku turned and gave a small grin. "I've trained my whole life. Plus, if we can use our quirks then I can show all of you plus Mr. Izawa what I'm capable of." "I'm sure we'll both do great," he replied while holding his hand out for Jiro to high-five. She rolled her eyes, smiled and high-fived his hand. With that the exercises began. The first couple of exercises were basic. Long jump, sit-ups, press-up etc. were all relatively simple for Goku, who was expecting more exciting events. Eventually when he had to do 100 meters he felt his blood begin to flow faster. He readied up at the start line next to the green-haired boy. "Hey, I just want to say go all out, okay?" Goku cheerily said to his competitor who looked nervous and just simply nodded. As Izawa prepared to yell start, Goku decided to power his body up. "Heikin" was yelled before he was enveloped in an aura of red. "Start" came the holophrastic sentence from Izawa. In a flash Goku pushed off the start line and was at the finish line almost instantly. He depot-ed and was really excited until he saw his competition just normally running. Izawa read him his time, but Goku was so busy thinking of why the green-haired boy hasn't used his quirk that he failed to notice. Eventually the time came for the final exercise. A ball throwing challenge. Your goal is to throw the ball as far as you can. Bakugo. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? Izawa asked the blonde-haired boy now identified as Bakugo. Bakugo gave zero effort and responded bluntly. 67 meters. "Then, try doing it with your quirk," Izawa suggested. Bakugo took the softball from Izawa, walked up to his serving position and prepared himself. He pulled his right arm across his body and readied his throwing arm before launching the ball forward into the air with an explosion. The gust of wind caused Goku's hair to flow in the wind, but he simply had a goofy smile plastered on his face. Bakugo arrogantly turned to Izawa, who held out the distance measuring tool to show 705.2 meters. The class was in shock. One by one they took their go at throwing. Some did way better than others. The cheery girl from earlier got infinity as her quirk appeared to have some control over gravity. Eventually it was Goku's turn. Taking the ball, Goku couldn't help but get giddy at the prospect of finally showing off his full power. "Body, don't give out now. I've only got to do this once," he quietly told himself. He looked at the softball in his hand before getting into a throwing stance. When he was ready, he closed his eyes and prepared himself for the next part. "Heiken times 4," he yelled at the top of his lungs before the red aura from before appeared, albeit this time it was more ferocious and rose higher into the air. Using all his power, Goku launched the ball into the air with a force so great many of Class 1 fell either onto the floor or stepped back to cover the faces. As the dust cleared, they could see the red aura fade and Goku standing there with a visible look of pain on his face. Aizawa was in shock, however. He held the distance measuring tool up to Goku and the entire class in their eyes, except Bakugo's, whose narrowed in anger, opened wide in disbelief. The reading for Goku's throw was an incredible 897.5 meters. The highest result under the gravity girls. What shocked them even more was Goku's goofy laugh and smile that followed. The final thrower was the green-haired boy. He looked nervous, but finally threw the ball only for it to go 46 meters. He looked confused, as did one, until they noticed Aizawa's hair had risen into the air and his scarf was levitating around his upper body. His eyes glowed a piercing red. "I erased your quirk. From what I can tell, you can't control your quirk, can you? Do you intend to become incapacitated again so that you can be saved?" Aizawa menacingly berated. "That's not my intention," yelled the green-haired boy before the scarf wrapped him up and drew him into Aizawa. There was clear fear in his eyes and Goku's brow furrowed as he realized what was going on. "That's Eraserhead. Got to be," he said loud enough for those in the imminent vicinity to hear. "What? No way. The underground hero who can erase quirks just by looking at someone?" Gulped a blonde-haired boy with a black lightning bolt in his hair. Goku nodded and the class slowly turned to face Aizawa with fear in their hearts. Though in fairness, from what he's saying it makes sense that guy didn't go all out. His quirk must break his body. Which means he must be crazy strong, Goku excitedly said. Jiro just facepalmed. "Goku? Never change," she chuckled. The class, -2, nervously chuckled as well. They all looked back to see the green-haired boy take back up his position at the pitching post before launching the softball into the air. The distance measuring tool pinged up and Goku managed a peek. It read 705.3 meters. Goku, along with his classmates, was in awe. Goku was actually more excited to spar with this guy. One person, on the other hand, wasn't too pleased. "Damn Deku, you've been holding out on me, make a fool out of me, I'll kill you," yelled Bakugo. Aizawa was holding him back with his scarf and was erasing his quirk. "Bakugo. It would be wise not to make me angry. Get back to the rest of the class." Now Aizawa threatened as he pulled his scarf back and Bakugo tumbled backwards onto the ground. He stood up, growled and walked off, but not before glaring at the green-haired boy now known to Goku as Deku. The leaderboard lit up with the results and Goku found himself in the top 3. Nothing new for him really. It was last place that concerned him. It didn't take him long to figure out who it was. Deku was visibly shaking and appeared on the verge of tears. His dream had been crushed. "By the way, I was lying about the expulsion," Aizawa piped up. The class's faces looked surprised yet slightly horrified at the same time. Well, everyone but Goku, Bakugo, the half-and-half boy and a rather attractive girl with dark hair and a questionable chest size that was. "It was a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks," Aizawa bluntly said. "What?" yelled the majority of the class in response. "Of course, it was a lie. It should have been obvious if you just thought it through," the dark-haired attractive girl said. The class looked at her with an expression of "wasn't that easy to tell. That's today finished. Have the rest of the day off. I expect to see you tomorrow on time please," Aizawa said while shooting a glance at Deku and Gravity Girl. With that he walked off and the school day for one came to close. Even though it hadn't really begun yet. Goku walked with Jiro to the gate as they discussed their first day at UA. Goku made clear his desire to improve his Kaioken technique while Jiro wished to develop her abilities as well. "Yo Jiro Kakarot, wait up," came a voice from behind them. Jiro turned around to greet the boy with the lightning streak in his hair from earlier as well as the attractive dark-haired girl as well. Goku however turned around with a glare before picking the boy up by his collar and threatening him. "What did you call me?" he growled. The boy had gone into panic mode and was sputtering over his words. Kakarot. Why are you threatening Kaminari?" questioned the dark-haired girl. Goku's sights immediately set on her and he dropped the boy known as Kaminari. He walked over to the girl before slamming her against a wall by the gate of UA. "Where'd you hear that name?" he violently asked as the girl stayed defiant but showed visible trembling. "On the leaderboard it said Son Goku/Kakarot. We thought Kakarot was just a nickname of sorts. Like carrot due to how spiky your hair is," she explained. Goku started to calm down and backed away from the wall allowing her to go free. She moved to Jiro's side as she helped Kaminari onto his feet. Sorry about that, Yamomo. He's never been like this before, Jiro explained. Let me guess. Yamomo is a nickname formed out of your first name and your surname. Isn't it, Momo? Goku growled with the trio in front of him looking more nervous by the second. Goku breathed in heavily once and then out again before looking up with a sad expression. I'm sorry for how I reacted just then. Please call me Goku. The name Kakarot is reserved for only two people. People who are long gone now, he sadly said. Momo and Kaminari felt guilty. Momo placed her hand on Goku's right arm and Kaminari placed his hand on Goku's left shoulder. No, we're sorry. We should have asked first if we could call you that. We won't now, came Momo's response. Yeah, sorry bro. Won't happen again. I promise. You okay, Goku? Kaminari asked. Goku looked at both with grateful eyes and lifted his head to show his signature grin. Yeah, apology accepted, now let's train to be heroes and fight strong opponents, he happily shouted with Momo and Kaminari agreeing. Jiro just smiled and closed her eyes. Seriously, Goku. Never change who you are, hardly even a challenge. The day started as usual. Class 1 arrived at their homeroom before Izawa, as they weren't particularly keen to get on his bad side after the events of the previous day. However, what they didn't expect was to go through the entirety of their morning homeroom with not a sign of Izawa. Until the door suddenly burst open and a tall, muscular blonde-haired man with a large smile barged into the room with his cape waving behind him. I'm coming through the door, he yelled with the entire class, except Bakugo and half, going nuts at the prospect of the #1 pro hero and symbol of peace, All Might teaching them. He appeared to be in his Silver Age costume, and Goku noticed Deku fanboying out. He simply smiled before turning his attention to All Might. Great, now that you're here All Might, we can go a few rounds, he yelled loud enough for the entire class to hear and stop screaming themselves. They all looked at Goku bewildered, as did All Might, whose smile was still on his face but appeared more awkward. I'm afraid that there will be no sparring with me today, young All Might stumbled. Goku, sir. Son Goku, came the reply. Oh yes. The second highest scorer in the practical entrance exam. I remember you. Hahaha, he laughed. Goku slumped back in his chair looking disappointed. He was unable to go up against the strongest hero in the country, and that bothered him. He knew it shouldn't, but his body yearned to fight All Might. It was at that moment Goku came to an epiphany. He would get stronger and then All Might wouldn't be able to turn down a fight. It would test Goku's strength, but also allow him to gauge just how much work her would have to be in. He sat up straight, straightened his tie and had a determined look upon his face. Alright. Get your costumes on, we're going to be doing some hero training today, All Might shouted, causing the class to get excited. Goku immediately snapped back from his mature form he had just presented and felt his heart pounding faster and faster. He reverted back to his somewhat childish and naive self. All Might pressed a button and the left of the wall in the room opened up with some holders coming out of it. Each holder held about 5 suitcases, each with a number on them. These are the costumes. After you submitted your design to UA, some of the best over in the support course designed your hero costume with the specs. The numbers are the designation of your seats in the class. Please grab your case and we will make our way to the training site known as Ground Beta, explained All Might. On instinct the class made for their respective cases. Goku picked up case number 6 and took it with him to the door where Jiro, Kaminari, Deku and Gravity Girl were already standing. Goku took the opportunity to introduce himself to the latter two. Hey. I'm Goku. What's your name? He asked with a smile. Gravity Girl looked at him, blushed red and then opened her mouth to speak. Hi, I'm Ichako, you're Raka, nice to meet you Goku, she cheerily responded while having a grin on her face. Goku laughed. That's a nice name. Do you mind if I call you Ichako? Wait, no, even better. I'm going to call you Chako, cute little nickname for a cute girl, am I right? He naively said. Uraraka's eyes went wide and she blushed even more while getting more flustered and stumbling over her words at the cute comment. Goku looked at her with curiosity as he was unsure of the implications of what he had just said. Yeah. Never really been given a nickname before. I like it. Chako it is then, Goku, Uraraka responded with a nervous yet cheery laugh. Goku smiled once more and gave her a thumbs up. He then turned to Deku. Yo Deku. As you know, I'm Goku. I want to see you at full power this time, okay? That cool? He asked. Deku immediately looked shocked at being called Deku. Wow, where did you hear the name Deku? He stuttered. That's what that Bakugo guy called you, isn't it? I thought that was your name. Is it not? Asked Goku. Yeah. What's wrong with that, Deku? Uraraka asked as both she and Goku looked at each other with puzzled looks. Oh, it's just that Deku is an insult made up by Kakin. It means weak and useless. Goku, my actual name is Izuku Midoriya, he nervously said, thinking he would be insulted. Goku just simply placed his hand on Midoriya's shoulder and smiled. Nah, it doesn't mean weak and useless. I think it actually means strong and brave, he encouraged. Midoriya's eyes brightened up and he felt tears welling in them. "Yeah, I think it's the name of a hero," cried Uraraka, who jumped up and down before fist-bumping Goku. Both smiled at Midoriya, who simply wiped away his tears. "Deku it is, you can both call me Deku," he finally cheered. The trio of friends laughed together. However, out of the corner of his eye, Goku noticed Bakugo glare at Deku and scowl. "Okay everyone. Let's head for ground beta," said All Might before Class 1 followed him to the changing rooms located at the training site. As they entered, the boys and girls went off into their respective changing rooms. Eventually all heroes in training walked out of the changing rooms into the open and were greeted by a massive city while All Might stood before them. As he walked into the light, Goku's costume became clear to those around him. He wore an orange martial arts guy with a blue undershirt. The top of the guy had blue ridges and was tied around the waist by a blue martial arts belt. On his feet he wore blue martial arts shoes which appeared taped from his ankle to his shins. They also had a yellow outline on the top of the show, which went around the top of the sole and one down the center of the top part of the show. On his hands he had blue wrist wrap that ran from his hand to just above his wrists. He wore no headgear. When compared to his classmates' costumes, his looked rather simplistic, but that was the way Goku liked it. He'd never wanted his fashion sense to be flashy, and he much preferred to wear something that not only was he comfortable moving about in, but also honoring all his martial arts training he had undertaken throughout his life. The final person to show up was Deku. Goku silently chuckled at his friend's costume, which, besides the color scheme, had features that bore a resemblance to their current teacher. Deku looked over at Goku and Uraraka, who were standing next to each other, and gave a nervous smile. The pair beckoned him over to join them. "Okay. Glad to see you all here. Today we will be doing simulation battles. You will each be split into teams of 2. 2 teams will go head-to-head in a crisis situation, with one team being heroes and the other being villains. I will organize the teams now," explained All Might. The teams were relatively good. Deku was paired up with Uraraka, and Goku was paired up with Momo, which both were pleased with. Eventually the time came for All Might to draw the first teams to undertake the simulation. "Okay, so Team A will be the heroes and will be going up against Team D, who will be the villains. Take your positions in that building over there," instructed All Might. Goku noticed Team A was Deku and Uraraka and wished them luck before noticing Deku's nervousness. It was then that he realized Deku and Uraraka were going up against a blue-haired boy who Goku found out was called Tenya and Bakugo. Considering how Bakugo reacted to Deku's softball throw the previous day and all the glares he aimed at Deku, Goku knew for a fact that this simulation wasn't going to go well. All Might led the remaining students to the viewing area while teams A and D got into position. On All Might's command, the battle simulation began. Bakugo immediately broke away from his duty to defend the weapon with Iida and made his way downstairs. Goku knew where he was really heading. Straight for Deku. Eventually Bakugo came across Deku and Uraraka and immediately attacked the former. Deku's response wasn't meant to fight back, not yet anyway, it was to distract Bakugo so that Uraraka could make her way to the weapon. Goku smirked and looked to Momo, who was deep in thought, possibly analyzing the battle. "I have an idea for how Deku can beat Bakugo," he whispered to her. She turned to him with curiosity. "Really? What's that?" she asked. Goku smirked in response before looking back at the screen. "Look at how Bakugo is fighting. He's extremely aggressive and arrogant, which Deku can exploit. Considering the way Bakugo has been acting around Deku, I'd say they share history, which means Deku may know all Bakugo's weaknesses in fights. Also, since Deku's quirk is so powerful it breaks his body and Bakugo has probably been fighting with his quirk for years, I'd say Deku knows how Bakugo fights," he explained with Momo looking at him in awe. "What? I've been training in martial arts my whole life. You pick these kinds of things up?" Goku chuckled. Momo just smiled before looking back at the screen. Her face went dark. Goku's face followed suit. Bakugo had his finger through the pin on one of his grenade-looking gauntlets and was slowly pulling it back while talking with an evil grin. Deku looked worried. "Young Bakugo, don't pull that pin out, you'll kill him," All Might commanded at the top of his lungs. Goku's body tensed and he was disgusted by the comment Bakugo made in response. "Only if he doesn't dodge," he said before pulling the pin out of the gauntlet and unleashing a concentrated blast of explosion straight at Deku, who had barely any time to get behind cover. Goku's body tensed in anticipation and fear for the end result as the dust cleared. He started to visibly shake with anger. "At that bastard. He tried to kill Deku. How dare he? How dare he?" he said with the anger in his voice rising by the second. His fellow classmates looked at him and looked nervous. What they saw was Goku's aura growing larger. The aura kept flashing golden, as did his hair. It looked like he was about to explode in energy. "Hey guys, Midori is okay, he got to cover in time," yelled a red-haired boy. Goku's rage dissipated, as did his golden aura. He looked up at the screen to see Deku preparing a punch with his right arm. His arm began to light up with energy and both he and Bakugo lunged at each other. The class and All Might looked in shock as Deku took Bakugo's blast with his left arm and performed an uppercut with his right arm. Yet he deliberately aimed away from Bakugo. The air force from the punch destroyed the upper levels of the building, and the class watched as Iida struggled to keep his footing. This gave Uraraka the opportunity to grab the weapon, and with that the battle simulation ended. The heroes win came All Might's booming voice and the class relaxed. Recovery bots entered the building and transported Deku to the infirmary, while Bakugo, Iida and Uraraka made their way back to the viewing area. Bakugo seemed despondent, which slightly unnerved the class. All Might broke the silence swiftly. "So who can tell me who the MVP of that match was?" he asked. Momo immediately put her hand in the air and began to answer. It was clear that Bakugo had no intention of working with Iida from the moment the battle started. His desire to split off ultimately lost him the match. Midoriya's plan worked, but he put himself in the danger zone and ended up getting seriously injured in the process. Also, the maneuver he performed with Uraraka was dangerous and had a high chance of not working. In the end, it was Iida who ultimately won the title of MVP today, as he played the part of the villain, defended the weapon, and adapted to each of Uraraka's attacks. With that, Iida is the man of the match, Momo explained, while All Might looked shocked and slightly embarrassed. "I totally agree with you. Although I probably wouldn't have gone into as much detail." "With that, let the next match begin," All Might exclaimed. The next two teams were picked out and moved to their separate building. The rest of the training carried on this way, and eventually it was Goku and Momo's match. They were the heroes and were put against Kaminari and Jiro, who were the villains. The match started as normal, but moments after the match begun, Goku had already placed sensors that Momo had created using her quirk around the building. Using a detection unit, she had also created the pair located the bomb and the locations of their adversaries. Goku was excited to fight his friends, and once the detection unit went off, he picked up Momo in a bridal carry, which she yelped at, and ran for the villain's location. When they arrived, they saw Jiro and Kaminari standing prepared for them. Goku put Momo on the ground and she organized her hair, which had been blown out of its original position. Goku got into a fighting stance with his right leg behind his left, and his left hand was out in front of him with his index and middle fingers in a claw as well as his thumb. Momo prepared herself as well, but was suddenly blown backwards by the force of Goku launching himself at Jiro and Kaminari. Before Momo could comprehend what had happened, she saw Goku with his hand on the weapon and both Jiro and Kaminari on the ground unconscious. Goku looked disappointed and walked away from the weapon. "Oh man. That wasn't much fun. Hardly a challenge." "Class president, you're going to choose a class president," Aizawa said. The class looked at him with interest, while Goku just looked bored. He slumped back in his chair, folded his arms and closed his eyes. The majority of the class was going ballistic, and Goku listened carefully to what Aizawa was inevitably going to say. "I wasn't finished," he threatened the class, who immediately sat down and went silent. Aizawa continued with his explanation. "You will decide yourselves who will be the class president. I'm going to have a nap and I expect you to have decided by the time I wake up," he explained before yawning and zipping up his sleeping bag before laying down on the floor. The class once more erupted into chaos, with each attempting to explain why they'd be the best choice for class president. "Silence," yelled Iida at the top of his lungs, catching the entire class's attention. Goku opened his right eye to see what was going on. "We're heroes in training at UA. If we are to do this, we must hold a vote, that way we can be fair," he explained with maturity. Goku just smirked and closed his eye again, only to hear Aizawa sit up and speak once more. "I don't care how it's done, just make sure it is before I wake up," he solemnly said before laying back down once more and going off to sleep with soft snores. Iida nodded and turned back to the class. "Okay. We'll cast votes into a ballot box, count the results, and whoever had the most votes will be the class president, with the person with the second greatest number of votes being the vice president. You can only vote once and you can't vote for yourself," he explained, with multiple members of the class complaining. Goku sighed and sat up straight with his eyes open. He stood up, made his way to Aizawa's desk, picked up a piece of paper, and then made his way back to his seat. After sitting down, he took a pen from his pocket and took off the lid. He then tapped his pen against his face as he thought about who would be the most efficient class president. He couldn't vote for himself, not that he wanted the position anyway, and he wasn't sure who was qualified enough. He looked at his class with beady eyes. Deku looked nervous, which meant he was out. Bakugo was, well, Bakugo. Half and half didn't seem interested. The midget with purple balls on his head creeped Goku out. The pink-skinned girl with pink hair, black eyes with yellow pupils and horns coming out of her head looked too immature. This process continued until he laid his eyes on one particular member of the class who seemed pretty calm about the situation. He considered their intelligence, maturity and position in the class before deciding that he would vote for them. With that, he wrote their name down on the piece of paper, folded it up and moved to put it in the ballot box. He then waited for the results to be read out. "Okay. So, these are the results. In first place is Midoriya and in second place is Yaoi Rozu. Therefore, Midoriya will be our class president and Yaoi Rozu will be the vice president, announced Iida, who showed visible frustration and disappointment on his face. Deku's eyes went wide in shock and he struggled to find the words to respond. Momo herself looked disappointed until she caught Goku looking at her with a smile. A frown appeared on her face before Goku quickly made his way over to her table and leaned over to talk to her. You look upset. Don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll be great. Hey, wanna know a secret, Momo? He asked. Momo looked at with curiosity. Yes, I guess. What is it, Goku? She asked with interest. Goku smiled, stood up straight and gave Momo a thumbs up with a wink. It's about your votes. One of them was me. I figured you deserved it due to how smart, mature and well qualified for the position you are. So even if you got the position of vice president, I'll support you. Got it? He said supportively. Momo blushed before returning Goku's kind words with a thumbs up. Goku gave a goofy smile and rubbed the back of his head. He then gave a little wave and walked back to his desk. It was at this moment the bell for lunch went off and the class made for the lunch hall. Aizawa continued to snore and the class chuckled as they walked past. They arrived at the lunch hall and split off into their friendship groups. Goku sat down with Jiro, Kaminari and Momo, who didn't look shocked as he walked over with trays of food. They had grown accustomed to it by now. The rest of UA on the other hand looked shocked. As Goku sped through his meal, the school alarm went off and the entire hall went into panic with the belief that it was a villain. Goku meanwhile jumped up, rushed for the exit and began to take off his tie. Boohoo, finally, a real challenge, I can't wait, he celebrated as Jiro, Kaminari and Momo ran after him. The latter three were unfortunate enough to get caught in the swarms of students making for the exits themselves. Goku rushed to the entrance of UA, kicked open the door with an enthusiastic smile on his face and got into his fighting stance. Instead he came face to face with a group of reporters being kept back by UA's staff. His face immediately dropped and he stood up straight. God damn it. So much for a fight, he sighed before walking back inside and closing the door behind him. As he walked into a hallway, he saw the students dispersing and looked behind him and up to see Iida dropping down from above. Iida. Why were you up there? Goku laughed with Iida pushing his glasses onto his face. Simple. I discovered that it was a group of reporters outside and this was the most efficient way of letting everyone know, he proudly stated. Deku and Uraraka ran over to the pair and congratulated Iida on his quick thinking. Great job, Iida sure is lucky that it wasn't an actual villain. Deku stated while Goku sighed in frustration, a sign Uraraka picked up on. What's up, Goku? You seem upset. Is something wrong? She asked with a look of concern. It's just that I was looking forward to some action, Chaco. I've not had any exhilarating battles yet, he complained. Uraraka just looked even more confused. Goku just smiled before continuing. Look. When you're as strong as I am, nothing really feels like a challenge. Deku wants to be number one and keep people safe with a smile. Iida wants to live up to his brother's name. You want to earn money to help your parents out, he confessed. All three looked shocked with Uraraka looking nervous at the prospect of Goku judging her. Goku just laughed before waving his hands in front of him to calm her down. I heard the conversation. You guys sure do talk loudly. And don't worry, Chaco. I'm not judging you. I think it's heroic that you're thinking of your parents' struggles and working towards helping them out, he commended with Uraraka blushing and getting embarrassed. Goku, what's your reason for becoming a hero? Is it really just to fight strong villains? Deku questioned, which caught Goku off guard. Goku turned to face his friend before sighing and losing the smile on his face. Honestly, no, it's not. I want to become a hero to protect people. I've seen firsthand what villains can do and it led to me losing something very dear to me. I have no intention of letting that happen to anyone else, he explained with his friends listening with sympathy and understanding. But what happens if one day you fight a villain that is even more powerful than you and you can't save the person you're protecting? Iida asked. Goku's eyes narrowed and his gaze hardened. Not an option. If that happens, I'll push my power to even greater heights than ever before. I'll beat the bad guy and save people even if it kills me, he said with dignity, resolve and strength. Deku had to admit that he admired Goku's courage. Eventually the four noticed that everyone else had gone back to their classes and they were standing there awkwardly. We should probably head back to homeroom. I bet the rest of our class are wondering where we are, Iida stated with Goku, Deku and Uraraka nodding and together they made their way back to class 1A. They were the last to return and walked in just as Aizawa was beginning to stir. Did he really sleep through that entire thing? Deku asked, and Pinky, as Goku had taken to calling her for the time being, responded quickly and enthusiastically. Yep, he sure has, or my name isn't Mina Shido, she said with a big smile. The class laughed and sat down in their seats to avoid being reprimanded. Aizawa stood up, still in his sleeping bag, looked at the class and unzipped his sleeping bag before standing at his desk. Alright. Class president and vice class president, please come to the front so I know who you are, he mumbled just loud enough for the class to hear. Deku and Momo did as instructed and stood at the front of the class. There was a look of determination of Deku's face which was strange. I'd just like to say that while I'm honored for this role, I don't think I quite deserve it. The person who does is Iida, as it was his quick thinking and leadership that calmed everyone down during that mass panic. Therefore, I would like to hand the role of class president over to him, he announced with the entire class, especially Iida, looking shocked before congratulating Iida on what he had done. Iida stood up and made his way over to Deku before shaking his hand and allowing his friend to return to his seat. Thank you Midoriya for this honor, I will not let your class want it down, he firmly stated with the class, minus Bakugo in half, erupting into cheers. Goku smiled before glancing over to Momo who looked upset. Using his quirk, he flicked a small ball of kai towards her, catching her attention. She looked over at him and he gave her a small smile and a thumbs up. I believe in you regardless of whether you are class president or not. Never forget that, he supportively whispered for only her ears. Momo gave him a smile of gratitude before wiping away the tears that had welled up in her eyes. She then turned to Iida to congratulate him. Goku leaned back in his chair and breathed outwards while Jiro, who was behind him and had noticed his kind gesture, just smiled at her friend. All was as it should be for the moment. A fun and supportive environment. It stayed like this for a short time until a certain sleep-deprived hero snapped back to reality. Alright, that's enough. Go get your hero costumes on. We're going on a field trip. Villain encounter. The trip that Aizawa mentioned went rather smoothly with little tension in the air. It wouldn't last for long though. Yeah, you're not like Bakugo. His aggressiveness is kinda unheroic, said the frog-like girl who was talking to Deku. Bakugo didn't take too kindly to her words. What do you mean? He yelled with the class laughing at his predicament. Sorry, dude. It says a lot if we know you already from your personality, Kaminari snickered. Bakugo turned and glared at him. Keep talking, I could take you all in a fight and win, he threatened while preparing his hands to create explosions. Sorry Bakugo, but you would probably lose to 3 people here right now, the red-haired boy called Kirishima smiled awaiting the reaction. Oh yeah, and who would they be? He yelled in question, once more causing the class to laugh at his situation. Easy. Todoroki, Midoriya and Goku. You've got nothing on their power, Kirishima responded with playful taunting. It hit its mark, and Bakugo erupted in fury. Goku suspected most of it welled from Bakugo's hatred for Deku. He was lost on the name Todoroki and decided to ask the person sitting next to him. Hey, who's that Todoroki person? He asked half and half, who didn't react in any way whatsoever. Me, he responded quickly and bluntly with little interest. Goku went wide-eyed before scratching the back of his head in embarrassment and turning away before the situation became even more awkward. Quiet. We're here, Aizawa said as the coach pulled up in front of a large building and the class disembarked with Aizawa leading the way. The doors opened and the entire class walked through to see that they were in a large dome-shaped building and there were different areas inside. Ahead of them was an astronaut suit which walked towards Aizawa, with the two sharing a short exchange. Oh my god. That's the rescue hero 13, exclaimed Uraraka with excitement, and Goku immediately smiled at a reaction. His eyes diverted to 13 who approached them. Welcome to the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short. Here you will be practicing disaster scenarios. We do this as being a hero isn't all about being flashy with your quirks and beating the villains. You've got to save people in dangerous scenarios as well, she explained with the majority of the class looking enthusiastic. Goku's face however dropped rapidly. He sensed a malicious presence and looked past 13 to see purple mist materialize with 3 figures walk through. I don't mean to be rude, but are those guys part of the exercise? I'm getting very bad readings from them, he asked 13 quickly. The 2 pros turned around to face the new arrivals, with Aizawa's eyes narrowing and his body tensing. The class moved forward to look, but were instead greeted with 13 holding her arm out to her side, causing them to stop. Aizawa took a step forward and removed his hand from his pockets. I thought All Might was supposed to be here. Where is he then? Asked a blue-haired figure in the middle of the group. He had what appeared to be hands all over his body, with one being placed on his face so that only his eyes were visible. To his right was what appeared to be a being of mist in a suit with a waistcoat, while to his left was a hulking creature with beak and an exposed brain. Goku reckoned he was the heavy hitter and most likely going to be extremely dangerous. Don't know, don't care. Who are you and what are you doing here? Aizawa demanded. The blue-haired man scratched his neck before his gravelly voice was heard once more. My name is Tamura Shigaraki. This is Kurogiri and Nomu. We're here to kill All Might. Now I have no issue killing some low-life heroes and their pathetic excuse for heroes in training to get what I want, he explained with Aizawa tensing in anger and signaling 13 to back the students up. Goku wasn't going to argue. These were real villains. Now although he wanted to fight them, he knew he had to be smart and careful about it. So Shigaraki, huh? Just another villain wanting to make a name for themselves. I'll defeat you like all those who have come before, Aizawa stated. Shigaraki gave a small and villainous laugh. His eyes locked on Aizawa with evil intent. Oh, I'm not like other villains. I'm a leader, he bluntly stated. Leader of what? Aizawa asked with concern. The League of Villains, came the reply. Almost instantly the portal behind him enlarged as Kurogiri activated his quirk and turned into a literal cloud of mist. All heroes present looked on in horror as a legion of villains walked through. You said you could handle us. I don't think you're ready for this, Eraserhead mocked Shigaraki as the league walked forwards. Aizawa lowered his goggles over his eyes and prepared to fight. 13. Get the kids out of here. Get help. I'll hold them off, he ordered before launching himself down the steps to engage in combat. 13 turned around and directed the class to the door only to stop suddenly. I'm afraid I can't allow you to do that. Tomura won't be very pleased, came the voice of Kurogiri, who materialized in front of them. The class backed up as 13 stepped forward. If you want to hurt the kids, you're going to have to go through me first, 13 defiantly said as a latch on the index finger on her right hand opened up and she activated her quirk, Black Hole. Kurogiri's mist began to be sucked into her finger, yet it appeared to have little effect on him. Suddenly someone launched forward at him to attack. I yelled Bakugo, who was followed by Kirishima as the pair took the opening. No, get away from there, shouted 13. Before anyone could react, Kurogiri expanded his mist once more and enveloped the majority of the class, including Bakugo and Kirishima. When the mist dissipated, Goku found himself standing alongside Iida, Uraraka, the boy with multiple called Mizo, Shoji and 13. He took note that they were still by the door and therefore hadn't been teleported. It was at this moment 13 activated her quirk again and began to suck up Kurogiri's mist. Iida, you need to get out of here now, get to UA and let them know what's happening, she commanded with urge. Iida looked in shock. I can't leave you here as class president, it is my duty to stand by my classmates' sides as we stand against villains, he courageously declared. Goku held back a laugh at how dedicated Iida was to his position as class president. Compassing himself, he put his hand on Iida's shoulder with Iida looking back at him in confusion. You've got to go, Iida. With Kaiken I'm fast, but I may be needed here. Besides, we're counting on you. You're the class president. Be a hero, he spoke with motivation. The spark of bravery and heroism reignited inside Iida and he nodded in understanding. He turned towards the door and prepared himself to run. The engines on his legs ignited as he engaged his quirk. Uraraka moved to Goku's side as she too prepared to fight. She stood up on her tiptoes to be in line with Goku's ear before whispering in it. Nice work. Got to admire your speech-making, she whispered with Goku's eyes widening and him blushing slightly. Uraraka dropped down to her feet and prepared to cause a distraction. Before anyone could react, Kurogiri opened up a portal behind 13, who was unable to deactivate her quirk in time. Her quirk was therefore redirected behind her and she could only scream out in pain as the back of her suit was ripped apart. She fell to her knees before falling onto her front. The 4 students remaining looked in horror at her body. Goku felt slight relief, however, as he could still sense her energy, although it was weak and fading. Iida, get out of here, me, Goku and Uraraka will hold him off, Shoji shouted as his multiple upper limbs turned into hands which clenched into fists. The 3 of them launched themselves at Kurogiri, who in response, opened up portals to throw them off. What he didn't account for was Shoji to grab Uraraka and throw her to Goku, who had jumped into the air. Goku proceeded to catch Uraraka in his arms before freeing up his left hand to blast the pair of them around a second portal, using a beam of Kai. As they passed it, he then used another beam of Kai to blast them both forward towards Kurogiri, who had little time to react. Goku quickly threw Uraraka into the air slightly before interlocking his hands and placing them so that her feet landed on them. With all the force he could muster, he lobbed Uraraka forward with her holding her hands out. I've just got to touch him, she said loud enough for only Goku and Shoji to hear. As Shoji moved in for close quarters, combat, Goku hovered in midair and proceeded to barrage Kurogiri with Kai blasts. Kurogiri redirected Uraraka's trajectory through the use of a portal, with her crashing into Shoji, who luckily managed to catch her before any serious damage could be done. Unfortunately for Kurogiri, he took the full force of Goku's barrage and his portals all closed. He dropped out of his mist form and fell to the ground. Iida, go now, commanded Goku as he landed on the ground. Iida didn't need to be told twice, and with his engines firing on all cylinders, he blasted forward towards the door. Going as fast as he could, Iida generally believed he could get to UA scot-free. However, what he didn't account for was the door being locked. All 4 students suddenly looked worried. Iida struggled to open the door. Suddenly there was a parting in the door and he proceeded to pull the door apart. As the parting became big enough to fit through, Kurogiri materialized behind him with Goku, Uraraka and Shoji being shocked at how quickly he had recovered and even more so at how they had failed to notice him teleport. Just as his mist reached out towards Iida, an explosion was let off and he went falling to the ground once more, although this time with Bakugo holding his hand down on a silver container which had become visible around where his neck should be. "Thought you knew I'd find your weak spot," Bakugo gloated as Kirishima ran up to Goku. "Sorry we took so long. Bakugo wanted to take out all the villains in our area. We were all separated," he apologized. Goku nodded in understanding and heard Uraraka let out a sigh of relief. They were all relieved until came a scream from Aizawa before a sickening crack could be heard. The class turned around to see Aizawa on the ground with the hulking monstrosity from before holding him down. His elbow on his right arm appeared to have slightly decayed somehow and was visibly broken. His face was then slammed down to the ground. While they were distracted, Kurogiri teleported to the side of Shigaraki with Bakugo growling in annoyance. Kurogiri appeared to say something to Shigaraki, who scowled under the hand on his face. He then said something that filled every student with dread. "I'm done waiting for All Might. Nomu. Kill them all. All Might arrives." "This is bad," was all Goku could say as the hulking monstrosity known as Nomu stood up from its victim, who was the now out of commission Aizawa. It towered above everyone present. Goku couldn't get a read on its energy and was therefore unable to tell how strong it was. He did notice something bizarre about it though. Anyone else notice how it seems to be following his every command? Almost as if it's completely brain dead, he asked with everyone going wide-eyed at this realization. Nomu sauntered towards the main group by the USJ entrance and they could do nothing but look on in terror. Shigaraki on the other hand had noticed Deku with the frog-like girl and the purple ball-haired boy who was known as Mineta due to all the times Goku had heard the girls call him a pervert. He suddenly launched himself at the frog-like girl while outstretching his right arm. His hand grabbed onto her face and everyone's eyes went wide with horror as they expected the worst. Nothing happened. "Of course. I guess you had one last bout of energy left in you, didn't you, Eraserhead?" He sighed before turning his head to see Aizawa with his head barely raised and his eyes glowing red with quirk activation. On instinct Deku leapt out of the water from where he was and pulled his arm back to punch Shigaraki. He punched at the villain and suddenly there was a massive cloud of dust. When the dust cleared everyone could see Deku with an unbroken arm having connected with the body of a villain. Just not the villain they had hoped it would be. Instead of Shigaraki being the receiver of the punch, the dust cleared to show Nomu had been hit. What scared Class 1 of the most was the fact that Nomu appeared unfazed, as if the punch had meant nothing to it. Deku's eyes went wide as Nomu grabbed his arm and began to lift him into the air. Shigaraki pulled his hand away from his intended target and stood up straight while scratching his neck. "I'm impressed. But you've volunteered yourself." "Nomu, kill him," was all Shigaraki needed to say. Nomu grabbed Deku's head in his left hand and began to squeeze with the boy screaming out in pain. Class 1 froze in fear. Bakugo instead just scoffed and flat out refused to move. Deku's time was about to be up except for one small detail, the red light zooming towards Nomu at speed so great that no one could keep up. "Get away from him," yelled Goku as his right fist connected with Nomu's face with the monster barely moving. On the bright side the impact had the desired effect and Deku was released from its grip. Once landing, Deku scampered away as Goku jumped back himself and got into a fighting stance. His face showed clear anger and determination which Shigaraki took notice of, as did Deku. Goku on the other hand was more focused on something else entirely. "Damn it. Kaioken ×2 barely phased him. I'm going to have to amp things up a bit more than I thought," he said to himself before stepping back with his feet shoulder width apart, his back slightly bent with his head slightly down, his arms to his sides with both his forearms forward and his hands clenched into fists. His face showed concentration and rage, while his red aura from Kaioken grew as ferocious as it did when he threw the softball on his first day at UA. Class 1 looked surprised at Goku's sudden display of power, with one member in particular appearing worried. "No. His body won't be able to handle the stress from that power." Jiro panicked as the class looked at her with curiosity and their own concern. "Wait, so you're saying that as his power grows higher his body takes damage?" asked Kirishima. "Yes," came the quick one-worded reply. The students all looked back at Goku as he continued to raise his power output. Crap was all Kirishima could muster in response. From where they were standing Goku looked fine, but they now knew the truth. He was in agony at the toll his power was taking on his body. Suddenly Goku yelled out as he completed his task. "Now I'll show you the Kaioken," he said in a strained voice. Shigaraki looked puzzled. What?" he questioned before the red aura surrounding Goku expanded even more and became a struggle to maintain for the young hero in training. "Kaioken ×4," screamed Goku before launching himself from where he was standing with his target being Nomu. Nomu didn't need Shigaraki to order it around this time as it was aware of what it needed to do. It pulled its right arm back to punch Goku and as it threw its fist forward it looked over for Goku. "Gotcha," he smirked as he ducked to the side of Nomu's arm and using his left arm performed an uppercut to Nomu's chin which caused him to flinch only a little. Goku wasn't done yet though as his right hand was balled into a fist and using his strength, he jabbed Nomu in the chest, which once again had no effect. Jumping back again Goku had to come up with a new strategy. He started to run around Nomu as fast as he could with the monster not phased in the slightest. Dust clouds began to appear and it stayed this way a short while before Goku launched at Nomu, punching him and flew past it before doing it again and again in rapid succession. As Goku launched himself one final time, Nomu simply raised its hand out and grabbed Goku's fist with a firm grip. Goku's attempts to pull away were futile as Nomu tightened its grip. It suddenly lifted his arm into the air taking Goku with it before slamming its victim to the ground over and over again. Goku screamed out in pain and Shigaraki gave an evil grin at the prospect of this first casualty. Class 1 froze in fear, unable to do anything but watch as their friend and fellow classmate took the full force of the onslaught from the creature. Tears appeared in the eyes of Jiro and Momo. Eventually Nomu let go of Goku's fist mid-air and Goku, unable to react in time, was punched in his chest. The force from the punch sent him flying backwards and he dropped out of Kaioken just before hitting the ground. Nomu went back to standing in a neutral stance and awaited orders from Shigaraki. Goku meanwhile was fading in and out of consciousness and dug his fingers into the ground. ×4 wasn't enough. He sputtered in pain. He just hoped he had bought his classmates enough time. The odds weren't in his favor however. Nomu. Kill those kids. I want this annoyance to watch before we kill him, said Shigaraki menacingly as he looked at Goku with gleeful eyes. Goku moved his head slightly to see Nomu begin walking towards his classmates. They were going to die and there was nothing he could. No was all he could mutter as he attempted to rise to his feet. As he stood up he hunched over in pain and exhaustion before dropping his head and not moving anymore. He had fallen unconscious while standing up. So Goku? What kind of person do you want to be? Asked an elderly man to a young Goku. Oh that's easy Grandpa Gohan, I'm going to be a hero, that way I can make mom and dad proud, yelled Goku enthusiastically while jumping up and down with a huge smile on his face. Gohan smiled in response. I thought so. I know they're proud of you already, but I'm sure that whatever you do you'll have made both of them and me proud, Gohan responded with a smile. Goku stopped bouncing up and down and his smile faded. Gohan raised an eyebrow in concern. What happens if I'm not strong enough though Grandpa? People will get hurt and I won't be able to stop the bad guys, he muttered. Gohan sighed before picking up Goku under his armpits and raising him up in front of him. He gave a warm smile. Goku's eyes lit up in awe. Well you'll just persevere and get stronger. You'll save people. I guarantee you that my pure-hearted grandson. My Nimbus. Goku's eyes snapped open in focus and he raised his head. His gaze set upon Shigaraki who stepped back in shock. Goku then turned to face Nomu who had noticed the movement from Goku in his limited peripheral vision. The creature turned to face its original adversary. Goku clenched his teeth in rage and his eyes narrowed. You won't lay a finger on them, I won't allow it, he growled in anger. Shigaraki rolled his eyes in annoyance. Doesn't matter what you say, you can't beat Nomu. He has multiple quirks including shock absorption. Also your last strategy at your Kaiô whatever ×4 failed, so what chance do you really have? You're at your limit, hero, mocked Shigaraki before laughing with malicious intent. Goku didn't react. His body was shaking and from the viewpoint of his class and the villains it appeared like his body was giving way. They could have never known how far from the truth they were. Goku was powering his body up with Kaioken once more. Maybe I'm at my limit but I don't care. I'll break through my limits, no I'll smash through my limits, Rarg, he yelled as he began to power up further than he ever had before. The ground began to shake and everyone who wasn't Nomu struggled to stand up straight. Jiro and Momo's eyes widened in shock at the power output. It grew more ferocious by the second as Goku's growls grew louder and more powerful. Shigaraki looked on in fear while Class 1 looked on in surprise and awe. His powers rising higher than ever before, realized Jiro as the rest of her class looked on. You're right, yelled Kirishima in excitement, damn that's manly, it's going past ×3. Past ×4. I'd say it's at about was all Momo could say before Goku interrupted her. ×20, he screamed at the top of his lungs as his aura exploded outwards and upwards. Shigaraki and Kurogiri, who had been silent this entire time, stepped backwards in concern. Kaioken ×20, screamed Goku before launching himself forward with such a force that the ground where he once stood fractured and blew apart like it was made from graphite. Before anyone could blink, Nomu had gone flying backwards with Goku using his body as a javelin to push him back. Nomu slammed its fists down onto his chest but ended up hitting itself as Goku had disappeared from view and then reappeared behind Nomu, bringing his hands down in a sledgehammer on Nomu's exposed brain. The impact slammed Nomu into the ground and a massive crater was formed. Goku slowly fell to the ground, landing on his feet and walked to the edge of the crater. His sledgehammer had caused some bleeding on Nomu's brain and the creature was spasming. Goku suddenly buckled over in pain as the effects of Kaioken X20 took a hold. "Aye!" he screamed out in agony and could do nothing as Nomu slowly stood up and smacked him aside. Goku pushed through the pain to flip over mid-air and land on his feet. His entire body was strained and his muscles were beginning to be torn apart. The situation looked dire until Goku's eyes narrowed as a plan formulated itself inside his head. Damn. I've got to finish this in one shot. I didn't want to use it just yet, but I don't have a choice. It's not been perfected and will probably drain, but regardless I've got to put everything I've got left into it, he muttered under his breath as Nomu sauntered towards him. He looked behind him and locked eye contact with Uraraka. Her eyes welled with tears and fell down her face. Goku gave her a smile and she smiled back as she wiped away her tears. He then caught Jiro's eye contact and she gave a smile before mouthing "kick his ass." She then proceeded to give him a thumbs up. Momo was next and she nodded, which gave Goku all the info he needed. Finally Kaminari caught eye contact and gave him a thumbs up and wink. Goku nodded before turning back to Nomu. "I've been saving this one," he said aloud for the remaining villains to hear. Shigaraki scratched his neck uninterested while Kurogiri looked on. Nomu just continued its path towards the spiky-haired boy. Goku raised his power and then cupped both his hands to the right side of his body at his hip. He had already bent his knees by this point and taken up a new stance. "Ha! Me," he began chanting out loud as Nomu continued to approach. All battle viewers saw a ball of blue Kai energy form between Goku's cupped hands and grow larger as he continued charging the attack. "Ha! Me," he continued as the energy grew larger before flashing a bright blue and the charging on it came to a halt. Goku stared down Nomu and his eyes pulsed blue for a slight second before he thrust his hands forward. "Aya!" he yelled with a massive blue beam of Kai energy shooting out from the palms of his hands where the ball had just been. The force of the blast pushed Goku back slightly, but he planted his feet firmly and using the last of his energy, the beam grew larger as it approached its target. Nomu took the beam head on as Shigaraki smirked. However, what no one expected was Nomu to be pushed back slightly and its body to start singeing. The creature was being ripped apart by Goku's Kamehameha. The beam soon enveloped Nomu and it disappeared from view. The beam then dissipated and Goku collapsed, his stamina and energy being completely spent. Shigaraki was furious and began to act like a little kid. "That's not fair, a kid can't beat Nomu, he cheated, damn it, this is so unfair," he yelled as his voice cracked. Goku, with his face on the ground, gave a small smile before feeling himself slip into unconsciousness. His face soured though as he sensed the monster's energy and barely saw it stand up. It appeared to be regenerating itself. Then the door to the USJ opened and there was only one thing he heard before passing out. "Sorry, I wasn't here to help." "Don't worry anymore because I am here," said All Might with a voice of fury. The vow. Goku's eyes slowly opened and he found himself laying on a bed in what appeared to be an infirmary. He looked down at his body and saw himself covered in bandages. He felt exhausted. His mouth formed a smile as 3 familiar Kai signatures arrived at his door. The door slowly creaked open and Jiro, Momo and Kaminari quickly walked through. Upon seeing Goku alive and awake they all sighed in relief before moving towards his bed. Jiro and Momo sat down on the chairs available while Kaminari stood at the side of the bed. Jiro simply punched Goku in his right arm and he winced in pain. "You idiot. You just had to push your body that far, didn't you? We were so worried," stressed Jiro, who was struggling to hold her calm facade together while Momo just had tears in her eyes. Kaminari looked concerned but kept a smile on his face and kept himself composed. Goku simply chuckled at all the concern his friends were giving him. "Don't worry about me. I'm fine really. It's you I'm concerned about." "How's everyone?" Goku asked with a concerned face. "Deku's fingers were broken due to using his quirk when we were all separated. Kaminari is fine, although we now know that when he uses his quirk too much he becomes an idiot." Jiro laughed at Kaminari's expense. The boy in question wasn't very appreciative. "Oh come on Jiro, I can't do anything about that, I'm going to work on it," he whined while everyone else just laughed. Goku once again winced in pain but breathing heavily. Suddenly he felt someone kiss him and turned to find a little old woman move her lips away from him. He freaked out slightly at what had just happened. "Oh stop your whinging. You're fine now. All your injuries have been fully healed. Although you may be exhausted," she explained. "This is Recovery Girl. She's the school nurse." "Not a fan of her healing method though," Momo explained while Goku struggled to keep his eyes open after the healing process completely drained his stamina. "Alright, visiting time's up. This young man has an important guest waiting to speak to him." "Shoo shoo," Recovery Girl ordered as she pushed the 3 students out of the tomb. All 3 waved as the door closed. Goku looked back up at the ceiling and before long the door reopened. Goku turned his head to see a skinny man with droopy blonde hair and blue eyes in the doorway. The man had bandages which weren't hidden very well, allowing a confused Goku to see them. The Kai signature coming from the man was extremely familiar. "Hello young Goku. My name is Toshinori Yagi. I work at All Might's agency, he explained while Goku rolled his eyes and gave a sly smile. Toshinori looked confused before sitting down by the bed. What's wrong? What did I say? Toshinori asked in confusion. You can drop the act. I know it's you, came the serious response. Toshinori's eyes opened in shock. I don't know what you're talking about, young man. You should stop accusing me of being someone else, he reprimanded. Goku just smirked. Okay. I'm sorry, he responded. Toshinori sighed in relief. All Might was all Goku needed to say to cause Toshinori to look up in surprise and horror. As he sputtered for words, Goku just began to laugh. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Can't ruin the legend of All Might, can I? He chuckled with All Might looking somewhat relieved before dropping his facade. How did you figure it out just by looking at me? He asked solemnly. Goku's face showed embarrassment as he nervously chuckled. Well, my quirk is Kai manipulation. Part of it allows me to detect Kai signatures. Once I've met someone, I can always detect their signature regardless of where they are. I can also sense Kai signatures of people I've never met before, but that only gauges to how strong they are or how evil. The moment you walked in, I sensed the Kai signature of All Might, explained the spiky-haired boy. All Might sighed before smiling. He knew that his secret would be safe with Goku, just as it was safe with his chosen successor. You know, you're the only other student that knows. The first to discover it is in your class, but I won't tell you who it, he started before Goku interrupted. It's Midoriya, isn't it? Goku coolly said. All Might looked flabbergasted at the prospect of two secrets being exposed by the same person in one day. How did you know? He questioned once more. Well, in fairness, I just guessed because he's like your greatest fan, came Goku's honest reply. He had sat up in his bed by this point in the conversation. All Might facepalmed in embarrassment at having exposed himself by accident. I walked into that one. What else do you know? All Might asked with bated breath. Well, I know there's something else going on between you and Deku, but I won't pry any further. What did you want to speak about? He asked. All Might sighed in relief before continuing. I wanted to talk about the USJ incident. You were badly injured against the monstrosity known as Nomu. It appeared as if your body was tearing itself apart, but we don't know how. Nomu had multiple quirks, you see, and not only of them could cause the damage your body took. Do you know what happened? He asked. I broke through the limits of Kaioken to times 20. My max is 4, but that didn't make a dent in Nomu's defense, Goku sighed. Kaioken? Is that part of your quirk? All Might asked. Yeah. It's a power-up technique that I created to allow me to increase my power. The only issue is that the more I power up, the more damage my body takes. It starts with stamina at times 1, but as I move up my muscles start to strain, and then my body just begins to tear itself apart, explained Goku. All Might tilted his head in concern. So you pushed past your limit of times 4 to times 20, which enabled you to actually damage Nomu. I've got to hand it to you that regardless of the risk, that was an incredibly heroic thing to do, All Might commended with Goku's eyes welling up with tears at the prospect of being called a hero by the number 1 pro. You ignored the downside to this Kaioken technique and put yourself on the line for your classmates. You should be proud of yourself. You bought enough time for me to arrive, All Might continued. Goku blinked and tears began to fall down his face. I've already said this to young Midoriya, but I truly believe that Class 1A, as the next generation of heroes, will be the greatest heroes ever. As a matter of fact, young Goku, I believe you will be one of the pioneers of a new age of heroes and will help lead the country, no, the world, through the darkness into the light once I have retired. You will be great, he said with a genuine smile. Goku's eyes were wet by this point, but he was still smiling. Mom. Dad. Grandpa Gohan. I'll keep my promise to you. And I'll do it as a hero. I'm going to get stronger and never give up, I swear. I'll find the villains who took you from me and I'll take them down to show I'm not scared, I promise. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.